Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Seward Soundwords. And now, introducing our host for today's Halloween episode, a monster who was turned loose to strike terror into the hearts of men, to shock women into uncontrolled hysteria. Don't touch that! The one, the only, don't let anyone see me like that, please, Doctor! The undefeated Frankstein!
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to be here. How are you? Good to see you. Appreciate it. Far too kind. Happy Halloween, everybody. And welcome to Seward Soundwords, Halloween, Episode 3. I'm your host, Frankstein. We've got a very special guest in the studio today. He's going to be taking on a little different role, and we're hoping he cooperates. You're used to him as the host of this show. Let's welcome him on in, folks. Today's guest is none other than local author Sean Ullman. Sean, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Frankstein. Great to be here. Always to be in the studio. Especially love the Halloween episode. Been in on a couple. And really excited to kind of change seats and be the guest. I have a new story to share. I've been writing a lot recently, so it's a new story. Whenever an author has a new story, they're excited to share. It's just fun. So I really appreciate it.
Wonderful, Sean. That's great. That's great. You got a new story. Good for you. Good for you. And hopefully good for us. So how you doing? I mean, what's new?
Oh, like writing and busy day always. How are you doing? What are you up to today, Frankstein?
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, I started out my day like I usually do. I went to the dump.
Nice. Yeah, great errand.
You bet. And you know what I love doing there, Sean? I wonder if you do this too. When I get to the dump, I'll race to get that trash and recyclables thrown away as fast as possible.
Really? Will you race somebody?
Oh yeah, myself. Or any other poor fellow that happens to be there is going to get totally beaten by Frankstein. Kind of a slow, lumbering kind of guy, but not at the dump. Not at the dump. And I just really like the dump. I feel good there. I talked to the ravens today.
Love ravens. That's my favorite bird. You talked to them, huh?
Yeah, I sure did. Well, they talked to me. They talk quite a bit. You know what it sounds like? It's kind of like...
Yeah, I've heard them. Yep. Spot on.
Right. So that's what they're saying. But what I hear, because I have this ability, right? Well, what I heard today was advice, Sean.
They gave you some advice.
They did. And the advice was specific for today's show, my third in a row on Halloween. They must have known you were coming on. And I don't mind sharing this with you, Sean, because I think it'll help really set the tracks for us to have a successful show. And I have little doubt that we will.
Well, what'd they tell you?
They said, watch out for Sean.
They did.
Watch out for him, they said.
Why? Why would they say that?
Well, they said that you were going to try to host. You were going to try to take over the show and kind of take the lead.
Well, I don't want to do that. That's not, I've really been working hard as a host to let the guest run the show. And that's interesting because, you'll be the host.
I get it, Sean. But let me tell you something. Today, the host runs the show. All right? Keep that in mind. The Raven said so.
Gotcha. Got it.
Yeah. Good.
All right. So you went to the dump, and then what'd you do after that? I mean, we had a little time here before coming to the studio.
Yeah. So then I went to the gym. Hit the weights. That's part of the routine as well. Everybody thinks, superhuman strength is just natural. He's always going to have it. No. It's hard work to maintain. So today was chest and tries, and I went big. Oh yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, Sean, you know what's interesting about the gym, I notice? This is just kind of funny to me. I don't know, maybe it's me in particular and my history and what I go through, but I notice everyone else working to stay healthy there. You know, everybody's just looking at themselves in the mirror. You ever notice that?
Maybe I do that a bit, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mirrors there.
There, yeah, everybody's doing it. And for a guy like me, I mean, we go back to that famous scene, right? Looking into the water of the pond and I see my reflection. Not good. So when I'm in the gym, now the gym is my dojo. I'm comfortable there, so I can handle looking into the eyes of this monstrosity. But after a while, it's like I say to myself, it doesn't matter how long you look at yourself in the mirror. You're not going to get any prettier, old Frankenstein.
Yeah, that must be something for you. So, well, where do you want to go from here, Frank?
Don't want to go there. No, I gotta let you know, Sean. Do not call me Frank. Do not call me Frank.
Heard that.
Well, you brought a story, right? And the basis of this show, you've said a lot, is writers reading their work live on the air. I think everybody's ready for a little story. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm ready. That sounds great. All right, so my story is called Cherry Taffy, and I'm looking through pages here because I'm just trying to get organized. A little frazzled here, Frank.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Settle down, Sean. It's all good. I'm here for you.
Right. So funny story. Went to print this story yesterday, and I like to print on both sides, and our printer is kind of set up. There's some things blocking it, whatever. But when it went to grab the page back in to flip it over, it grabbed 2 pages, printer jam. And so it took me a while to kind of figure it out, get the page out of there. I actually ended up cutting my finger. I don't know if you guys could see.
Yeah, just hold it up to the camera there, Sean. They can see fine.
There's a little blood on this page right here. Crazy. So here we are with a Halloween show. And, the computer's like the printer, excuse me, it is a computer, but the computer's like printer is telling me, here's where the jam is. Here's what you got to do. It's running the diagram. It's like talking to me, but I couldn't, it's not working. It's broke. So I couldn't get it fixed. But man, it's kind of funny, Frankenstein. Like I actually felt kind of like you, where like this thing is just like eating my story and not printing it and it's talking to me. I'm like, it's alive.
Nice one, Sean. Nice one.
But anyway, I do not have the story printed, but in this case, I got to use my smartphone. I hate to do it, but I want to share the story. And, they do come in handy. And even someone like me, I keep finding.
Yeah, but Sean, you don't really want to talk about that kind of thing.
No, I don't. I just want to read the story. So here we go. It has a bit of a Halloween touch to it. First of all, it's titled Cherry Taffy. So we got that candy going on. And I think you'll hear more about this story after. I think I'll save that. That'll give you more. But it has kind of this creaturey, just imaginative vibe that I think's today.
Wonderful. Bring it on, Sean. Stage is yours.
All right, Cherry Taffy. The theater was packed. Standers and aisles, fan-loaded balconies appearing to sag. We had good seats, if not great. Section 3, row 33, stage left. I put the capacity at around 5,000. I remarked to my tuxedoed friend, only writers of children's books could sell out a symphony hall. Agreed. He leaned across the stranger between us, who had neglected to switch seats without providing a reason. My friend talked on. Juvenile literature is the best match for performance. Any reader of it knows it's hardly juvenilia. I feel like a kid in PJs, ducked out of brushing teeth, tucked in on a wintry night. New story about to start. As the first reader embarked upon the stage, he added, I think, actually, though, that this may be an enormous chapel. So many of the modern greats were there, all giants of the pen, put on earth to tell stories that would inspire generations to become storytellers themselves. They all read new material. That must have been the arrangement, to hit us with raw show when we were, of course, expecting their typical polished pearls, perfect spheres of unmatched luster. They must have somehow agreed because some of the works were rather messy. False starts, scrap manuscripts, all but one, maybe 2 of the performances felt raw, unrehearsed. The titans of children's books more than once excused themselves for losing their place, or all of a sudden pulled from some long unemptied pocket a scrap of paper with a crackpot seed of a scene that they had no intention to share. They fed off the crowd and one another. Spontaneity spawned a surplus of spontaneity. The great Geraldine Harris, author and illustrator of the award-winning titles Apple Trees and Baseball Cards and Basketful of Hedgehogs, drifted into most awkward stand-up comedy act, inoffensive yet nonetheless tactless. Watching her exit the stage with a wild smile, I imagined her admitting to the next famous reader what a thrill it was to unequivocally bomb, to be taken back to her failures at nightclubs decades prior. With such a legendary lineup, the hungry crowd would be satiated no matter what stories were told, never mind such untouchable pen women and men bearing their souls, which turned out were just as fragile as the rest of ours. The show ended with little pomp or fanfare. Or so it seemed. After the stage had lain empty for exactly 2 minutes, a slow-starting applause thundered up to a standing ovation. Then, rather than head for the aisles, which were of course still packed like sunflower seeds in a ball player's cheek, all the attendees sat back down. Perhaps like myself, they needed a moment to sit in the afterglow of the robust nonconformity that had occurred, inhale the perfume of vulnerabilities that were wafting in the colorful rays of stage lighting, or filling the scoops and the scalloped ceilings. I yearned for movie credits set to piano, to be let down easy. Exiting the chilly street to return to our banal day-to-days was the furthest thing from our minds. In short, the stage was set for an astonishing encore. Every ear in attendance curled in response to a mysterious unspoken request to listen on another level, to one more story. It got so still that there seemed to be only one movement in the humongous hall. The older woman in the seat directly in front of me adjusted her arm to fetch off the floor her handbag, which resembled a doctor's satchel. That swishing of her satin suit echoed. In such frigid silence, the unbuckling of the brass clasp clonked like a tilting dump truck. She removed a leather-bound journal, flipped through pages scriven with thick inked calligraphy. A dank dose of old book smell spilled upward, as well as dust particles that sparkled in the lane of prismatic light carving through the distant ceiling's triangular belfry. She began to read. The outrageous silence persisted, deeming unnecessary the microphone or stage used by the other performers. I did not recognize her deep and deeply happy voice, nor the elegant style of her silver hair. It was woven in a long braid that reminded me of baked bread. And I did not recognize the story. And I should say I did not recognize the story's style. Because with each of the preceding readers, despite reading new and second-rate material, their signature style was obvious in practically every sentence. In all likelihood, this was a new voice, a debut. And my friend and I, as well as the stranger between us and the man and woman sitting to the performer's left and right, had the advantage of looking at the pages as she read. Like a child with their grandmother at their bedside, we had access to the lovely storyboards that had been sketched beside the elegantly printed words with a print-ready flourish. Not that any art was at all needed. The best picture books can win with words alone, and many a genius has agonized over the dilemma of replacing their young readers' imagined visuals with renderings of their own, or some collaborating professional. This particular story, entitled Cherry Taffy, started with a sign. This was the first sentence. The message on the toothpick-piked post-it was scribbled in far too minuscule a script to decipher. And from there it ran, the reader proving early and often that only she, the writer, should be the reader of such a tale. The story continued. Eventually, a lepidopterist happened by, bent to the cobbles beside the sewer grate, plucked the note, and inspected it with a magnifying glass, which rendered the directive, stamped in all capitals, clarified. Please, through these very teeth of this ancient street, feed all fruit parts you can spare. Cores, pits, rinds, and stems are particularly tasty. Largest thanks, illegible signature. How odd, the lepidopterist thought. Adding this find to the morning's discovery of 3 new species of butterflies, she hurried to her laboratory. There she drew a blown-up version of the tiny sign and returned it to the exact location, not before pinning her new insects to a felted picture frame. The sewer grate was very near a busy intersection. In fact, that whole downtown area received endless foot traffic. The once coarse cobbles, worn smooth, supported such pedestrian congestion. Before dark, a tremendous amount of stone fruit pits and cores of a cornucopia of apple varietals and melon husks and grape stems had been plinked through the grate. Most contributors cared not what happened to the ends of their fruits. A few assumed a new sign might explain as much, but most gave it nary a thought. It simply provided pleasure to follow a frivolous command from an unknown and likely subterranean source. Though, of course, with so many people answering the call, it followed at least a few would become doomed or charmed to wonder where the bits of fruit went. And well, come to think of it, seeds are what much of the waste was at their cause, weren't they? Nevertheless, once this waste was put onto the street, what became of it? Well, at this point, the incredibly sustained silence of the immense hall gave way. Listeners sighed, some stirred in the chairs to reposition for Act Two. All right, maybe I'll take a little break there.
Yeah, I think we all need a break. Hey, nice job. You got going there, man. Nicely done.
Yeah. What do you think, Frank? You like it? Frankenstein. I'm sorry. Give me one there. I got carried away.
I'll give you one. You get one. Yeah, interesting. I like her voice. I like that part. It's working.
Thank you. Yeah, fun story. I guess I could go into a little bit of the backstory now. Do you think that would work? We're like about halfway through the story.
Yeah, go with it, man.
Yeah, so well, I should say I've been writing kid stories.
Wow. Kid stories, you.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, it's just a lot of your material is hard. Your other books and stories are hard for adults to understand. There's a lot of language, extra detail.
Yeah, I hear that. That's a fair criticism, and all criticism is good. And so this is a direction I've been working on to get more direct, be more clear. There's ideas that I have that I want to communicate. Like, I think that's kind of job number one for a writer is to get the point across, deliver the message, communicate. And you're right, Frankenstein. I mean, you're on it. In the past, I have kind of pushed more language or setting, or really just kind of writing, just kind of, hey, this is a cool idea and I want to exercise it. And I didn't really focus that much on like, hey, are people going to really come away with like, that's what he meant, or what did I even mean? I definitely got lost in that a lot, but I was writing a lot and made myself happy.
Yeah. Well, it's like, is it for you? Is it for them? Is it for us? Right?
Exactly. So the kid story move has been really fun. It's definitely made me more of a clear writer, direct, really starting to break down the sentences close up.
So is this a kid story? It's, what would be the message?
Well, it's funny. Actually, I would say no. So I'm putting together a collection of kid stories, going to be 6 of them. And this Cherry Taffy would fall outside of that. But I wrote it at a time when I'm writing kid stories. All the other things I've written in this fall and actually going back to last spring are kid stories, besides like some breaks for essays, or I've actually been writing a little bit about sports cards just for fun.
Interesting. Huh.
And but this story, I wouldn't put it as a kid story. In fact, I am thinking of like submitting it to some journals. I haven't done that in a long time, but it kind of touches back to a style I had before. I don't know how I would describe that style. I guess you're getting a sense of it, but it just makes me think of some other pieces that I did submit years ago and got published in some indie journals. So I might try that.
Hey, good for you. Getting published. Nice.
Yeah. But this, written at the time of writing kid stories, but not a kid story. Cherry Taffy.
I think we should get back to the story, Sean.
Awesome. Here we go. And the reader, too, seemed to prepare herself for the approaching pivotal plot point. Setting the cracked book in her lap, she dug in her bag once more and soon removed a tin for mints. Those in the reader's vicinity were privy to the drawings on the pages. We'd already glimpsed the impending underground scene, and were also made aware of that within this wallet-sized container there lied a bright red bar. She quickly ripped it into 6 equal pieces, plopped one in her mouth, and handed out the other 5 to the 2 people sitting to her left and right, and the 3 behind, me, my friend, and the stranger in between. Upon my fingertips, it felt like moss, this red bar, damp to the touch and delicate. When my piece crumbled into 4 parts, I considered handing 3 back to those seated behind the stranger, my friend, and me. but figured that was not her intent. Instead, I stuffed into my mouth the sweetest candy I had ever tasted, it turned out, and began chewing this irresistible cherry taffy as the reader continued the reading of her equally exotic story. Well, the cores, pits, husks, rinds, and whatnot did not fall far. A foot or so was where a wire basket, a foot deep and in diameter, was placed upon a red kerchief. It didn't take too long to fill, and within the second hour of the first day, a mound of discarded fruit bits had rounded off the pile, the collected hillock resembling the curve of a banana. Gum smacking accompanied her words now. I realized this annoying noise issued by the reader, as well as the six of us nearby, was an intentional conceit intended to mirror the oppressing tension introduced in the same paragraph in which the key character was revealed. Trembling just beside the heaping bowl was a genuine, living, breathing muse. The minuscule creature sat upon a thimble in the center of the... How to describe this palatial contraption of wires, threads, pulleys, levers, cogs, wheels, pipeworks, and plastic chutes? Many parts of a sewing machine or loom were what seemed to encage the pocket creature. Mouse-like, one could certainly say, though whiskerless and without tail. Its ears were on the inside of its conical head, as if its rodent nose were set atop rather than in front. Beady eyes arranged in reverse, with the pupils white, irises gray, and sclera black. So a remark such as, "You could see the blacks of its eyes," would be accurate if one were positioned to catch a glimpse of this busybody at the center of this incredible machine. While its eyes kept watch on the fruit mounting in the basket, its hand and feet, three-toed hooves, spun upon four pedals. This frantic movement set the wires and threads in motion. The system worked. From the bottom of the basket, which sloped into a funnel, the next core or pit would trickle into a grinder. The audible gnashing would soothe the high-speed operating creature, for it was fulfilling its purpose, doing what it was positioned to do under this street in the cockpit of this wild invention. That is, it was turning organic waste into fresh ideas for stories. Such magic it merely felt rather than understood. But to see the alleviated basket make room for the next sweet item to drop motivated the perspiring creature as though it was a matter of life and death. Fittingly, that word marked the end of the page. At that point, the six of us and the author ceased our smacking of the candy, which, though it was drying on my teeth like cement, seemed to somehow increase in sweetness. Slowly, she turned the page. And here is the advantage of including art in such stories, because all at once we were led inside, given a portrait of this fanciful creature, and at the same time made aware that all that remained of this mind-blowing story was a mere page and a half. Imagine, here we are, 5 audience members among thousands, eating out of the author's hands, sweet bit by sweet bit, then to be walloped with such a gigantic two-headed reveal? I felt a lot like the anxious mystical creature I was studying. This is too much, I tried to say to my friend, but my mouth was now supremely clamped, the red taffy like the mouthguard of a stunned boxer. The author easily removed from her mouth the candy which had shed its stickiness. This gave me hope that mine would soon do the same, and I calmly breathed through my nose as she continued the story with a delicious description that made an impressive match with the drawn image of the creature we were ogling.
Yeah, get some water, kid. Man. You're listening to 91.7 KIBH FM Seward, and you're watching on YouTube at our @Sacktown channel. This is Halloween episode 3 of Seward Sound Words, hosted by Frankstein. Special guest, Sean Ullman. Sean's reading a story entitled Cherry Taffy. We're through halfway, and I can't wait to find out what happens.
Thanks, Frankstein. With the first transformative completion of Fruits to Idea, the creature itself morphed, the digits on its hands and feet doubling to 6, its arms stretching tremendously and taking on a serpentine motion. Able to propel the pedals 4 times as fast now, the worry receded from its dark crystal eyes. Out of the sides of its pulsing head burst 2 new pointed bumps, what would have to be referred to as its shoulders grew to stack boulders and sprouted a thick green fur that, at a glance, could be mistaken for sheeny grass. The shadows that had surrounded the creature and its marvelous apparatus were gone now, as up and down the wires and threads a pulsing electricity hummed and glowed. Dropped out the bottom of the basket, fruit bits were being composted faster than they were adding to the top. This satisfied the creature, as well as the artist, an elderly writer seated at a desk beside the machine, who had made the less than once-in-lifetime discovery of this rare muse. Those of us with access to the art could easily assume the artist was the owner of the veiny arm dangling into the picture, its leathery hand cupped to capture the precious ideas, which were rendered as bright red cubes no bigger than teeth. Aside from the small image of a flying crow or raven that appeared below the last sentence of the story, that was the extent of the art. As the author started to read the final scene, it seemed right for the audience and all future readers to be invited to imagine the finale for themselves, a case perhaps where the words were worth 1,000 pictures. With tiny hammers and picks that belonged to a dentistry kit, the writer cautiously chipped at the red cubes. Once piles were sorted, the very germ of the valuable ideas were isolated and in position to be consumed, not unlike a reading of tea leaves. From there, the sentences came fast, brought to life from the tip of the author's ink-dipped crow feather, and scriven on tiny sheaves of parchment that were no bigger than stamps. Within an hour, the monstrous muse cranking constantly, the first story was complete. Without hesitation, the author gathered up the red gems, tossed them into her mouth, and gnashed until they were coalesced into a waxy paste. This substance was used to wrap the first tiny book. Once that was accomplished, the author simply pushed the package story up through the same grate through which the seeds that grew it were received. A boy emptying his pockets into the sewer, peach pits and acorn caps, was the first to notice the prize, but upon touching the gooey coating, his hand reflexively retracted. Within seconds, a pack of butterflies flocked to the sticky booklet. All but one got stuck. Before a crowd of pedestrians could fully form, a raven arrowed down, clutched the red item and attached butterflies, and flew off. The crowd tracked the avian trickster rising in the white sky until it landed in a hemlock tree that, rather than the ground, appeared to be rooted to a cloud. The corvid plucked at the red goo and sipped as though it were a to-die-for hors d'oeuvre that would set the mood for the enchanting story it was about to read. Once it had freed the book from its red coating and 6 butterflies, the raven, with its nimble red-tipped bill, cracked open the book and began to read. My eyes were closed at this point, and had been ever since the raven's arrival, anticipating the final lines of my neighbor's captivating story, not to mention the opening words of the secret story housed within it. I swear I could hear the ticks of the bird's claws, and perhaps even the clapping smacks of its red-stained bill as it plucked at the pages. I thought, why shouldn't a book, in addition to a few tone-setting pictures, supply a sample of associated sounds or smells? My mind returned to the taffy lodged in my mouth, as intense a cherry flavor as when I first tasted it. The candy directed me toward a panic regarding my inability to ever swallow or remove it. I opened my eyes. What I had mistaken for the raven's clacks was accompanied by a gloomy glow that pitched onto the final page of the book in the author's lap. The final lines of the story were blocked by her arm. To my tremendous disappointment, the unmistakable snaps of a smartphone's camera pitched into my hyper-antennaed ear. The audience member directly behind me, exponentially inspired, had stooped to attempting to capture the sensational story with his device. Tapping notes, I hoped, rather than exact words, and then sneaking photographs. As I stood to block the spy, the author seemed to reward me by removing her arm to reveal the final 2 lines. I could only decipher 2 words. Typically elliptical were those 2 words. Before the book disappeared. When immediately after, the author and the entire amphitheater evaporated as well, it occurred to me that I might be dreaming. I awoke at once, sodden with amazement and relief, the thinnest shred of cherry slime evaporating off my teeth. Thank you. That's cherry taffy.
Wow, thank you, Sean. Wait a minute, so it's all a dream? The story, everything, it's a dream?
Yeah, it has the dream frame. You don't find out till the end. I mean, didn't it feel like a dream?
Well, not till you hit us over the head with it. I mean, no, I was with you, man. I got to process that a little bit, but I don't know about the dream. Kind of cheapens it, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it's still an early draft, and yes, I hear you, and I did consider that. But the thing about this story is, it actually came from a dream. Um, I was kind of scuffling on some stories, but I've been in mode writing. I really like worked hard to just get back to writer shape. Where like every day in the morning, I'm gonna write, no matter what. May not feel like it, and so I have been doing that. And there have been some tough days. Some days like start tough, and it's like, oh, that was not so bad. This is something I talked to with Brian Wright, fellow local Seward writer, who just published the Sword of Shell. Um, Sometimes you're writing and it feels like, this is crap, I'm no good, and then you read it later, it's like, you know what, this is all right. This one felt great to write, I will say, but it was given to me in a dream. I think because made myself back into a writer, as far as like a daily, okay, writing every day, my mind subconscious is like in writing mode. And it was early morning. I've been having lots of vivid dreams, and this was right before I woke up for like the early morning, and I got like the whole frame to the story. It's like the hall, and I was looking over the shoulder and seeing this writer story, and I could see like some pictures to it, and the whole idea with like the fruit pits was a key part that I got in the dream, going down through like the sewer, and even like the creature, like just all came. Dreams are hard to describe, obviously, but when I woke up, I was like, oh, I even said in the dream, like to my friend, I was like, this is so good. Like, I'm loving it. I want this story. I like it. And then I woke up and I'm like, oh, dang, that story is so good. I wish I wrote it. And then, you wake up a little more and I'm like, I did. That's mine. That's my story. I just got it from a dream, and it was clutch because it really gave me a lot of energy. I got right up and I made notes really fast, and even started writing actual sentences, basically the same sitting, and wrote the story fast in like maybe 2 days of sitting, and just came off kind of just like that. A lot of energy where the ideas are coming fast, and that does not happen all that often. But when it does come, you appreciate it, and just remember that, okay, this does come, and just like it's worth it to really try to give in to the writing act and commit, because you can get these breaks. This is an example of that. And so it's got the dream frame. I hear you, the dream thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking interesting, all that, and you want to be true to your process there, and a little nod there. I'm like, I dreamt it, so it's gonna have a dream in it. But again, who's that for? Is that for us? Is that for your readers? Or is that for you? That's a question you got to sit with. You got to sit long and hard, I think, Sean. Because I've sat with it just a few more moments, and I got to say, I don't like it. The dream frame. I like that you got a story and a dream. I'm happy for you. Believe me. But I think you got to touch that up a little bit. And stories there, it's like a block of clay, right? You could change it. This thing hasn't gone into the kiln yet, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I mean?
I hear you, Frankenstein. I'll think about it.
Yeah, please do. Please do. But it's interesting to me. You mentioned like some other writers in there were at a reading, and you mentioned like a woman's name, Harris or something. Is that a real writer?
No, I just made that up. There's actually a whole list of kind of like children's authors' names that I made up. I just left that out. I don't know. In the interest of time for the reading, a little adjustment there. It's fiction, so you just make stuff up.
Yeah, okay. But fiction can have some authentic elements, right? I mean, you could have used real children's authors' names.
I could have, definitely. You got to be careful blurring the line there. This, I just went all fiction, just kind of sticking with that theme of like the made imaginative of the dream. I don't know. For now, that's what it is.
Yeah. Fiction, that's something that's been on my mind quite a bit, as long as I can remember. This question of fiction, what's real, what's made up. Take my story, for example.
Sure. Yeah. Frankenstein. Goes way back. Mary Shelley. Awesome book.
Right. Now, we've had a lot of different artists interpret my story. We got, of course, the originator, Mary. We got Boris Karloff in the early movie there in 1931. followed by its sequel, Frankenstein's Bride, Karloff again. All kinds of people do it.
Yeah, and then here you are. I was wondering, what Frankenstein are you? Like, how did you're it? You're the real deal.
Yeah, well, you see, I got the stripes on this coat. I'm kind of like the nautical Frankenstein, I think of myself. But yeah, the original. And, it's like looking in that pond or that mirror in the gym again. It's like, who am I? Where'd I come from? Where am I going? Is this all a dream? Is this all made up?
That's deep stuff, man. That's something to sit with. I mean, you got me.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll stay with it though. All right. Whoa. Hey, just in time. Looks like we got our first trick-or-treaters of the day.
Awesome. Hey, they found the station. That's so cool. You got candy, right, Frankenstein?
You bet. Loaded up this year. All kinds of stuff. You like Nutrageous, Sean?
No, I don't think anyone does.
Payday?
Also no.
Well, we got other stuff too. Let's see who it is. Go ahead, open the door. What are you waiting for?
Hey, guys. Yeah, one sec. Oh, man. Come on in. Who we got?
Like, zoinks, man.
That was some story. Hey, we were listening. Man, all a dream? Come on. You had us going. Thanks, Shaggy. Yeah, the dream thing I'm going to reconsider.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, thanks, Scoob.
Shaggy, Scooby, how are you guys? Good to see you again.
Like, zoinks, Frankenstein. Good to see you. How you doing? Great show.
Appreciate it, Shags. Appreciate it.
Like, yeah, Frank, that was awesome. Oh,
well, thanks, Shaggy. We're running out of steam here. But, hey, we got some candy, guys. Help yourself. Get in there. What you got? Payday. Nutrageous. See? Scooby likes them.
Yeah, he's a dog.
Good point.
Like, zoinks, man, this is some great candy. What a great start to filling our bags. But, like, you got any Scooby snacks?
Shaggy, I was looking for Scooby. Like, what are Scooby snacks?
I'll tell you.
I mean, is it a dog biscuit? Like, what's the deal?
Like, zoinks, man, you'd have to give me a lot of Scooby snacks for me to explain what Scooby snacks are.
Well, we don't have any. But thank you all for showing up.
And thanks, everybody, for listening. Happy Halloween.